Hello everyone, my name is Susan Merdinger. I'm a Steinway artist currently living in Chicago, and I'm here today to give you several of my top tips for efficient practicing of the piano, or any instrument for that matter. I'd like to start with one of my favorite tips, and that is to keep a practice journal. I have created one such journal called my piano journal, and it's subtitled Reflections from the Practice Room to the Concert Stage. And at the top of every page, there's a motivational, inspirational quote from famous composers, performers, inventors, philosophers, authors, you name it. I really highly encourage you to keep a journal, to keep track of your goals, write down your reflections, and it helps for your time management and organization. Second tip, I highly encourage you as a student musician or as a professional or anything in between, aspiring professional, semi-amateur, semi-professional, whatever it is, record yourself on a regular basis. By doing so, you can obtain an objective assessment of how you sound and how you are making progress. And the other reason for this is that you can never be fully objective when you're in the heat of the moment of a performance. And performing in front of a recording device helps simulate the concert stage. My next tip has to do with warm-ups. I love these soft rubbery balls that I bought on Amazon. I find these to be fabulous when I don't have access to a piano, and it could be backstage prior to a concert, or it could be on a long trip on an airplane or in a car going to a concert, or when I'm just vacationing and I want to keep my hands and my fingers strong. These are great for helping stimulate blood flow, keep your fingers and your hands strong without causing any damage, because they're soft and they're a gentle way to warm up your fingers and your hands. This next warm-up tip is one that helps center you and help you focus. It helps you develop your focus using basically like a yoga type of technique. You inhale through your nose and then exhale through your mouth as you bring your arms down in a circle. These are basic arm circles with breathing. I love doing this, and I encourage you to establish a routine that works best for you prior to every performance. Next, train like an athlete. And by this I mean athletes have to work on their bodies, but also their minds. They have to develop endurance and focus. So make sure that you get proper exercise, nutrition, sleep, all of those good things, and also check out some of the books that were written for athletes, which are so applicable to us musicians. One oldie but goodie is The Inner Game of Tennis. Another one is Mental Toughness Training for Athletes. I highly recommend those. Now, two more tips that came from one of my very earliest teachers, Michael Pollan at the Westchester Conservatory of Music. This is somewhat of a technical tip, actually, but it's more of a philosophy of practicing. He said, never forgive a note. Never forgive a wrong note, I should say. Never forgive a wrong note. And by that he meant that if you constantly practice by playing through your pieces and you miss a note and you keep going and you figure, I'll get it next time, there won't be a next time. You will forget where you made the mistake. You have to stop, fix your problem areas at the moment that it happens. So that's when you're in your practice mode and your practice mindset. And that is also followed by another tip of his, which was never make the same mistake more than once. This comes in handy if you're a professional recording artist, because you can, if you're really well prepared and you don't make many mistakes, you're always going to have one little thing or other that that might not be perfect, in which case, if you never make that same mistake more than once, and that's just your, your modus operandi, you'll just always be able to get most of your recordings done with 2, maybe 3 takes. The next thing that I love to recommend is calisthenics for the fingers in the form of these exercises by Isidore Philippe. And I just love these exercises. I have both books. And just to demonstrate one of them for you, the book 1, series 4 is particularly valuable. All of these exercises involve playing modulations of diminished 7th chords. I love the diminished 7th chord because it's evenly spaced, minor thirds, and it helps develop the stretch between all of your fingers. And then it helps develop independence of your fingers. So here's one such exercise. And so on and so forth. These are invaluable. They get trickier and harder in book 2, and I love both of these books. I had to buy another book too. It was so worn out. Now, next, I would love to demonstrate one of my practice techniques, which is a rhythmic variation. And most pianists, we all know the tool to use syncopation to help you develop speed and develop emphasis on certain notes, but to really get like fast passage work that's all 16th notes, say so if you're practicing that, most teachers would advise etc. I love to do the opposite. I love to take something that's syncopated and unsyncopated. And a perfect example of this is Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto, where we have these octaves in triplet eighths with 2 8th notes plus an 8th rest. Okay, so what do I do to practice this kind of passage? I unsyncopate it. This really helps you develop a line and shaping and shows connections between the notes that you might not have been aware of, which will help with accuracy and musicality. Next tip that I have is the odd-even method of practicing. This refers to practicing odd measures and thinking the even measures and then doing the reverse. To show you what this might look like, I'll use an excerpt from the Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto, and this technique helps firm up your memory and gives you an ability to start your piece at any measure. It's especially helpful because if you do have a slight mistake or anything, slip of the finger, you're always going to be able to move forward. You always have a point of rest, an anchor point, because you will have learned how to start on any measure. Sometimes it proves difficult when the phrasing goes across the bar lines. But one caveat about this is to always practice over the bar lines so that you don't develop that terrible disease called bar-line-itis. Anyway, here's an example of what it might look like or sound like. Etc. My next tip has to do with pedaling, and I urge everyone to think very creatively about articulation and pedaling. Just because something says staccato doesn't mean it should be bone dry, and also the converse is true. don't use the pedal as a crutch to do what your fingers should do. So one thing that I would love to demonstrate to you is a special technique that I learned from the great Walter Hautzig, and it's to use the middle pedal. Instead of the right pedal, use the middle pedal, and this helps you establish, enables you to have a staccato bass while you have a nice resonant sound in the right hand. This is from Beethoven's Opus 2, No. 2 Sonata, the Largo Appassionato. Okay, so in another live stream, I'd love to demonstrate the difference of what it would sound like if you use the right pedal. But I assure you, I hope it comes through on the live stream, just how resonant this tenuto can be if you use that middle pedal instead of the right pedal. Now, the next tip that I have, just keep going through my list, is own your tone. Own your own tone. This is tone bass after all. No two pianists should ever sound alike, nor will they. We all have our own physical characteristics, and we all have our own mind about how we think things should sound. Just two tips about producing your sound and your tone. Use your large muscles for bigger sound, and use your smaller tendons and smaller joints for lighter passage work. So for Tchaikovsky, arm weight and using your back and shoulder muscles. And for light passage work, just your fingers and your wrists, and that's sufficient. Okay, next that I'd love to, also just one more pointer about dynamics and tone. Make sure that your fortes are appropriate to the composer. Not all fortes are equal. A Prokofiev forte is different than a Mozart forte. Pianissimo in Debussy is different than a pianissimo in Mendelssohn. It has to do with tone and color and pedaling and so much more. So just keep that in mind. You know, Schubert could write triple forte, but is it really going to sound like a Prokofiev triple forte? I don't think so. Okay, last couple of pointers. For memorization, it really helps if you memorize your left hand completely independently of your right hand to the extent that that is possible. You know, be able to play, you know your music horizontally and vertically. And the other tip I have is to practice at times, whenever you can, practice with your eyes closed. What this does is it gives you a better kinesthetic sense of the piano, and it also awakens all your other senses, especially your hearing, your ears. So I really encourage this, because if you have any opportunity to play with your eyes closed in your practice, it prepares you for the time when you might be playing a concerto and you need to look at the conductor and you're playing and you're accompanying the orchestra. You know, if you're playing in Tchaikovsky, you want to be able to have that eye contact. Also, when you're playing chamber music, having that eye contact with your colleagues, it gives you just so much more flexibility, and ensemble playing is improved. Also, playing with your eyes closed helps you, it really enhances your hearing, because when you eliminate one sense, all of your other senses are heightened. And lastly, tempo is the most important determinant of interpretation. And my teacher at the Yale School of Music, Ward Devaney, used to say, you have to either play like fire on ice or ice on fire. But just remember, when you practice to develop your tempi, if you're working on something that's supposed to go really fast, don't expect it to be able to play it quickly and fast and prestissimo if you've only ever practiced it slowly. Slow practice is so critical, and everyone likes to emphasize how important that is. And I can't emphasize that enough either. But you must practice from the very get-go, from slow to fast. Those passages that must be fast, there's only one way to test out your fingerings and see if they'll hold up at the fast tempo. So you might not be able to play a whole concerto fast all of a sudden, but you can certainly take a measure or two and test your fingering. So do it slowly, and then do it medium, and then do fast and up to tempo to check it out. My last piece of advice would be, always choose emotion and interpretation over absolute perfectionism. Perfection doesn't really exist in music. Music is so subjective, and no two pianists, no two musicians are ever going to be alike. I always adhere to this. I love the quote by Beethoven, which is, to play a wrong note is insignificant, but to play without passion is inexcusable. So I urge you all to go out and make sure you have time away from the piano. Yes, it's okay to be a little bit obsessed about it, as I am and many of us are, but go out and make sure you train like an athlete. Make sure you have fun. Make sure you do other things so that these extra life experiences help enrich your music making. Thank you. I'm Susan Merdinger on behalf of Tone Base. Thank you for listening and watching.